County Attorney Subcommittee work session for the 2012 budget. The victim witness and the Child Advocacy Center have already presented to the full delegation, and the purpose of this meeting most specifically is in regard to some proposed increases in the salaries for the assistant county attorneys, and so I'm basically calling the session to order, and we'll get to the right page. Commissioner Kinney is also here with myself and County Attorney Tom Durst. I'm Chris Ahlgren, State Representative from Carroll County District 4, representing Wolfboro, Tufton Borough, and Moulton Borough for the record. So, let's just, without further ado, go ahead and work on that. Let's see, page 5, according to this thing that I have, for the, maybe different for you. Okay. All right. So primarily, the things that we're looking at are the differences in the assistants attorneys, with how that breaks down and how that compares to some other offices and their caseload and workload, and also the civil commitment line. Also, everything else is relatively or exactly the same. It doesn't really,
or less.
Yeah, it doesn't really need much discussion for those items. So, did you were? I apologize, but I kind of peeked last Friday, but I didn't see any information flowing to my email. Did that happen?
No.
And I just missed it because that's.
It's right here, actually. So some of the backup.
Okay, great.
Do you have one from me?
Yeah.
Sure. It does appear that way. Maybe why.
This is just a sampling of the various assistant county attorney salaries.
Okay. Now we have, excuse me, sorry, I have a bit of a tickle.
And then there's some other town prosecutors' salaries and ranges that had been collected by the town of Conway when they were recently interviewing for a prosecutor on this page here.
Grafton County, looking at the range from 51 to 71,000.
There was an article from Rockingham earlier in 2011 when they discussed what various assistants were making, county attorney was making.
Do you have? Do you have any information specific to Belknap County or Coas County?
Yep, there's
that would be. Man, I'm gonna have to take a second here and go get something to drink. I definitely have a little tickle going. Excuse me, thank you. All right.
County attorney in Belknap makes $89,164. And
Copy that right there.
this here. What's that?
Oh, I see. Do you have any copies of that?
Yeah, I'm gonna copy whichever ones you want. I did have them. It came off of a spreadsheet, and then we had to label them because the printout didn't say which county it was. But I'll be glad to get those copies before we leave. County attorney here, and assistant county attorney. This is a range. Minimum and maximum.
Okay.
So 27. That's 56. 804 to 37. 80. 78,000. 624. These are what our county attorneys are making. The entry level is 44,280. The middle assistant county attorney is 52,215. The deputy county attorney is 64,000.
Okay. And your proposed salaries for the upcoming the upcoming budget for 2012
Yep, those
fiscal year?
are
This is the calendar year.
raising the entry level to 50, the middle level to 60, and the deputy county attorney to 70. They had another spreadsheet.
And that is reflected to equal the 180. Yeah. Oh yeah, that does add up, doesn't
Yep.
it? Okay. Great.
And I'm in support of the increase of the assistant attorney salaries.
Okay. Now, all right. So did we? I guess I'm here. Did we have someone who was going to be hired, a prosecutor? That was a former prosecutor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that one of these people? I apologize. I don't know his name.
He was going to be hired, but he couldn't financially take the job even at the salary that we got permission to offer him.
Okay. So these are. So we have.
So
Do we have a vacancy?
no,
So we
Laurie-
hired someone else?
Laurie Lacoste was hired at the 44,280, which is what the other assistant county attorney was making when she left.
All right, so Lori. So, all right, so Kristen has moved on,
Yep,
and it was Lori Lacoste.
yep, Lacoste.
Okay. Okay. Well, from where I sit, at least, and as I mentioned informally earlier, I mean, obviously can't really take a vote. I'm the only person here, as far as making a recommendation to the delegation. I would definitely recommend having a spreadsheet that would try to, that would juxtapose, these levels of attorneys and compare them to the counties that are closest by, or may at least have a feeling of similarity.
Mm-hmm.
Belknap, certainly I feel is fairly similar as far as its size and scope and the type of cases they may be looking at.
Right.
COAS is at least closer, but you might say, well, the cost of living is a little lower. But I think that'll give the delegation what they need to see.
Right.
And it needs to be laid out in a format where you have, your deputy attorney have, COAS, Belknap. What would be another good choice? Grafton. That ones that would be similar yet, with some knowledge of, their cost of living, depending on where they were. That would be the way to go. Also, a history of the positions, how long people have stayed at particular positions. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, but in my recollection is that Attorney Murray started as the entry-level position, and now has moved up, which is great. Which is what I think we'd hope happens. But to give an idea of how quick the turnover is, I believe that, at least from where I sit, and maybe from where some other delegation members sit, is that the importance of the top two having some longevity is of greater importance than the entry-level person, how often that person might turn over, just due to, at least my perceived notion of kind of how the system works, countywide. They're essentially just trying to get necessitated experience in order to go into private practice or to work for a defense firm. So that particular position may be not necessarily, the amount of money might not necessarily be the main motivation that people take that, or the main motivation why people leave. Probably the money is, but that's because they're going for money that is not within the realm of what we do in perspective. So I think that would be great for the county, for the delegation to see, so they can look at those things, so they can really map that out. As far as what you're...
Could I respond to that? Because
Sure.
I think it's important. I don't think that we could traditionally do that, because the level of experience of the attorneys who had come here and who have left have varied, and they didn't necessarily come into the entry level, or they might have come in at a lateral level, and they were paid different amounts based upon their experience and their ability to handle criminal cases.
Mm-hmm.
It is also as difficult to compare it to other counties, because the same types of crimes or the same types of loads, they just may be spread out with a number of attorneys handling, like say in Hillsborough, where they might have 21 attorneys and we have 4. So the same work is probably being done, the same caseload, but without, it's almost virtually impossible without probably an extended survey to try and find out how much cases each one has, because they fluctuate. As soon as someone leaves, you could go from 20 cases to 30 cases at any given time, and there seems to be turnover statewide, and people are moving from county to county, or from job to job, or from attorney general to and anything in the or back to the private sector, to a local police department, where some of those salaries are reported, and was one of the reasons why some of the attorneys that take the private jobs or For example, the Merrimack County Attorney, his salary, he was the city council, and he might have been making more as city council, City of Concord prosecutor than he makes as county attorney. But it all depends on where anybody is at any given time. So there isn't a good, we can rely on this and say this. It's just where we are at any given point of time, and how the county has to react to the caseload. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to explain. I mean, because for example, our entry level position now, this attorney is taking a cut down in pay and coming from the private sector as an experienced attorney of 6 years to an entry level position, mm-hmm. but is doing so with hopefully the hope that her salary will be increased to a reasonable level the first year and then move up from there. Mm-hmm. So that's about the most honest analysis of how we go about trying to set these salaries. I set these salaries this way because that's what we're working with now, and on how we're processing cases, and that's based upon what is going on now, mm-hmm. and who we have now.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate your rebuttal and input. And what I was attempting to communicate was, obviously I have a narrow scope
right.
of the committee because I'm just one part of the committee, and I'm an even narrow scope of the delegation.
Yeah.
But from my past experience mm-hmm. on the delegation, there is that feeling. Okay, so the amount of caseload that each person can handle obviously is important as their contribution to the total, and then everyone has to add up to equal the total. And how that money gets dispersed is adjusted accordingly. I would imagine. So if what you're saying is, and I could be wrong, is that your entry level person is stronger than your typical entry level person,
right.
and therefore demands a little more salary than you would typically give to that person.
Right.
But in the main scope of things, then perhaps is that total amount though is something that we should point toward the maintenance. Like here's this level. We need to handle so many cases, and it takes this much money
right.
to handle that many cases. You can expend it, $170,000 to one guy and then $10,000 to two others, or,
right.
or well, I guess I didn't quite do the math right there. But do you see what I'm saying? It's like, and so that would be kind of maintained as the policy going forward, and trying to put it together with the idea of a similar office, how much are they spending to handle similar type of caseloads in totals. Like they're spending this much money, they do that many cases, it's so much a case.
Yeah.
Anything that you can do along those lines to help justify these increases and make it more easy for the delegation to understand easily is going to help us better understand the need and be willing to go along with it. So those are just the type of ways. By here's what they're doing in Belknap for their top level, their medium level's this, their bottom level's that. Mm-hmm. They have probably more, right? They have how many attorneys over Belknap?
I don't know if they have more. I don't know the answer. It doesn't give us that information.
It doesn't?
I don't think. Well, let's see. Where's Belknap? They have 2.5.
And we have 3?
We have 3. And see, like I say, in that office, because there's less, there's more responsibility. Just like in our office where there's less, you have to do the whole the whole thing faster. I mean, you have to do the trials faster, you have to do, you know, and there's very little to go around, and divvying it up by experience, such as in maybe Hillsborough or Rockingham, where you could, you know, piecemeal things out and have specialty divisions and deputy county attorneys.
So they would be...
The deputy county attorney here has to do, you know, both hats, work a huge caseload, you know, perform that function, and still, you know, and she would be like, compared to Rockingham, 27,000 less than Rockingham, yet, you know, trying cases like we're trying them back to back and things like that, it's almost impossible.
Okay. Well, I mean, at first blush, I have to admit, as being, at least as I guess my reputation as being as fiscally pretty fiscally conservative, it doesn't look like the overall amount of increases are too out of the question. So, you know, I think we're just looking at being able to justify them with what's the current marketplace and what, you know, we can look forward to in the future.
Right.
You know,
and
so it's not really that big of a sticker shock.
Representative McConkey had, you know, when we had talked about salaries that, you know, might be considered, you know, would be considered less, and these ones that are proposed are really less than what they should be. I mean, like the entry-level assistant county attorney and the middle level, like for Steve Murray, because, you know, the prosecutor in Conway makes more than he does now, and Steve's over there doing jury trials and, you know, working, I mean, straight out in the Superior Court, and just not to minimize what happens in the district or the circuit court as opposed to, but as far as responsibility and number of trials and things, and it's just, and same with the deputy county attorney, because, you know, she's doing a lot of trials, and a lot of complex trials. So these numbers here are really not what they should be, but they, you know, I guess in an extension of trying to meet the county's goals of trying to come up to speed and getting us, you know, back where we're not a continuous revolving door and losing all of our benefits and all of our skills and all of our personnel.
Yeah, the institutional knowledge of
right,
knowing where the courthouse is.
Yeah, because
it's rudimentary, but it kind of comes down to that, just knowing where you are, knowing how people work, and you lose all. You keep losing that instant. You're constantly retraining.
Right.
So, which was kind of the other part of what I was talking about, is to try to get an idea of how long the average person lasts.
Yeah.
To give that sort of figure, like, you know, the average time someone stays here is blank, you know, and that might give credence to, well, maybe it's because they're leaving because the money's too short. You know, and then especially when you compare it to what else is out there, most particularly the county attorneys, and you know, similar circumstances, assistant county attorneys, but you know, but also the prosecutors could be, you know, taken as an example. But it does appear that most of those town prosecutors are paid pretty well, just kind of across the board.
Right.
You know, could, you know.
And this is what we dealt with when we had to do the hiring processes, because that's what they, you know, they have to have to make these decisions based upon necessity, and you know, the two, you know, I'd say all of the prosecutors are in the circumstance that it's very hard to make ends meet. You know, being in practice for 16 years and making $64,000, as opposed to, you know, someone in practice 5 or 6 years and making, you know, 44,280 or 52 right now, and you know, just trying to step it up to at least 50 and 60, which, you know, isn't really enough, but you know,
right.
It's got to be for what we can pay and what the county can afford. But perhaps it would help.
Okay. All right. Well, it's really, I guess, all the questions I have on that. If there's anything you can get to me just so I can look at more at my leisure, that would be great.
Yeah.
And like I said, if we can get together a spreadsheet so we can kind of really just show that comparative analysis.
Yeah.
For the delegation, so they can see that and put their hands around it. I think that'll be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So next, do you have any comment you'd like to make, Commissioner Kinney, in regard to the salaries beyond the fact that you support them?
Yeah, no. I think they get low paid for a long time, so I think it is time that we do a comparison and make some adjustments.
Okay. All right. So then, I guess next we need to look at the civil commitment.
Yeah.
Certainly in the past, and that's something that we've only funded when we anticipated a need.
Mm-hmm.
And it's here again. So in this budget, and so I was, do we have a new need, or is this anticipated cost for the current? Or from the last civil commitment case?
Well,
what's that do? What's that about?
Well, the civil commitment that we had, and we did have a need when I first came on board. The delegation graciously granted that request that hadn't been previously submitted from the previous county attorney, and that case went forward, and I think we spent. Let me see. I think I've got enough.
I don't have the year end. I just have 9 months. It says 10/7 after 9 months, but I don't have the year end.
I understood it went about to almost 12,000, but I think some figures haven't come in. There was some depositions and stuff, but when we did the research on these cases. The range of the possible civil commitment case could run from 21 to 30. So we chose the $25,000 amount. We got to about the mid-range of 12.5. We were in the middle of that case in the middle of the summer, I think, and there was a re-offense or another offense committed by the person. Which then there was a sentencing last fall, and he was sentenced to the state prison again for violations. And so that took him out of the realm of the law and the return to the community within a certain parameter, because now he's under another sentence.
Okay.
So with the combined, what he had before, what he's doing now, when he could get parole, that was gauged out at about 9 months from November. So that will place us in, just a little bit past mid-year. And we may have to start this process all over again. Just for the committee's knowledge, we had 2 to 3 possible candidates where the county attorney is notified under 135E that somebody who may fit that criteria and may require, the evaluation by the multidisciplinary team to determine whether or not they fit the criteria, and then a petition is launched. Once the petition is launched, then that starts the process individually, and then all the legal issues have to come through. They have to be evaluated by experts, and the experts are the expense, and some of them have to fly here, and so is there a chance that there's going to be one this year? Yes. If there's 2, I don't know if we can afford it. If they both go at the same time. So that's been a large item. because we had only a $3,000 criminal case expense,